Now, hello everyone. Welcome to the next instalment, the next episode. Nice to have you all here once again on a Thursday evening with our decorative time of year with the Christmas tree and all the decks going up. We've got a packed show for you again this evening, and then hopefully you all enjoy. So, to Dan to take it away.
Okay, as in our usual start, we're going to bookend the show with a little bit of philosophy and a little bit of thought, just to get us underway. And this evening, I'd like to start us off thinking about cycles, because after, if you like, the fact that this world is, everything is energy, following from that, everything is cycles. Everything that moves, everything that happens is all cycles, whether that's the most fundamental cycle, you know, that life, death cycle, which is an interesting one because African tribesmen, for example, will take on, they think when there's a death and sadness in one world, there's birth and joy in another. If you like, there's that rolling cycle. In Hindu philosophy, you know, when you die, all you do is leave the physical body, but the soul carries on. Yeah, it may move, it may change places, it may move from person, but it carries on. And there are countless stories and examples of people who have left their physical bodies actually coming back and talking to people, a little bit like we think of when Jesus rises. And whether you believe that or not, it's kind of preferable to that kind of life thing. So there's that cycle. But whatever state that you're in, every ending is a beginning. Everything that happens moves on, and you start to realize that the only thing that is actually constant is that everything is continually changing. But when you go out and you get into the countryside and you look around and you watch and you realize everything out there is cycles as well. You know, you've got that beginning of life in the spring, and when buds start coming through the winter and bulbs start coming up, and we get that flowering thing, you know, blackthorn starts to come into blossom, and in May blossom, the hawthorn does the same thing. We talked about that boldly this year because never seen so much May blossom ever that I can remember. And maybe it's because we had such a fantastic spring. It was most amazing. But that then carries on. And as a result of that amazing spring and the May blossom, we've got the most amazing hawberries. And they're still out there and they're still painting the countryside red. We're going to see some videos later on Worth Marshes. And on one section, you can clearly see the whole of the hedge is red because of the hawthorn. That's amazing. You know, there's that life-death cycle. But we have that yearly cycle where we're going around the sun. And we do it every year. You know, it takes 364 and a quarter days. We have the lunar cycle, which we talked about last week, which takes 28 days. And we get 13 of those a year. Kind of feel we should have 13 months, really. That's what the Indians in America do. And they call them after things that happen through the cycles. You know, there's the moon of the popping trees, moon of falling leaves. They all kind of make sense. They all kind of fit. But when you then come back to us and you think there are times when you lose a job, you lose a partner, a relationship goes wrong, you lose a job, and all of those things, we have to try and remember that they are not only things coming to an end, but they're a new beginning. And when you take all of those things on board, where do we think best? Where the air is freshest, where when it enters our bodies, it enlivens us, you know? So we need to take those cycles and think about those cycles and take ourselves outside, because when we're not feeling so good, it's those actions that actually makes us feel better. And after all, if we go outside and we smile, again, as we talked about last week, you cannot help but feel better.
And thank you very much. I think we can all, again, like most weeks, take something from the first section of a broadcast. Now, on to our next section, which is, I believe, our final section on the five senses.
No, it's still one to go, isn't there?
I'm not sure.
Taste.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Taste.
So is it number 4 in 5 sections of the five senses. So, back over to Dad.
Smell. Now, I don't mean that you smell, I mean smell. The sense of smell. You know, we've got these receptors in our nose and they pick up things. But it's funny how it's the sense that we possibly use and acknowledge the least, because we actually use the most. It's possibly one of the strongest. Yeah. When you talk about sense of smell, the first thing that people generally go, "Oh yeah, you smelt it. You smelt it, dealt it, fit for a king." All those different phrases, because there's nothing like a good, decent smell humour to make people laugh. Doesn't matter what age child you are, you'll generally still laugh at farty jokes. But that leads us to one of the most amazing things about the sense of smell. You see, our body actually cuts it off. Yeah, you get about 1.5 minutes of any smell and it's gone. Whether that is a fart, or whether that is perfume, or whether that is food, you get about 1.5 minutes and it cuts it off. And if you're not sure about that, so when you leave that room and come back into it, you'll smell that smell again, which is kind of bizarre, but it's also really handy. I mean, for example, back to the toilet humour again, but I had a friend, colleague for a while. He worked for one of the big agricultural environmental agencies. That's one of the ones where they put those kind of big squares on the fields and then fill them with human poo. Yeah. And as you can imagine, when you work with this stuff for long enough, it starts to kind of pervade and get into everything. Now, for the most part, he never smelt it. Yeah, because he was used to it. But I remember one day his daughter said, "Dad, I need a tenner." He said, "That's fine, you can have a tenner. Go out and wash my van, please." And she went out and checked his van and came back in and said, "Nah, sorry, Dad, I don't need a tenner that bad." But it's one that fires up. It's weird because we actually use the sense of smell to brighten up our houses. You know, we like to have the scent of apples or pine woods or jasmine. These are all things that we bring indoors from outdoors, but it's our sense of smell that does that. And we're connecting ourselves on the indoors back to the outdoors. You know, we're bringing the outdoors in. Smell is amazing for that. And this year again, especially, I talked about the Mayflowers earlier, but this year, almost more than any other year, I've never been stopped when I've been out in the countryside by the smell of honeysuckle. You know, it's been stronger and more vibrant. And that's just been unreal. Jasmine's been another one. So we bring in those, how many times do your senses actually stop you in your tracks? But they also fire up memories. And the kind of memories will linger in your mind for longer than almost any other sensual experience. I mean, I remember as a kid, my grandmother lived in Canterbury. I used to go and stay with her a lot. And near where the Roman painted road, the Roman road is, there was a coffee shop. And I remember there were rows of different kinds of coffee in the window. And my grandmother used to go in and they would grind up the coffee for you when you went in the shop. And I remember it so distinctly because then and now, or maybe now and then as well, personally, I detest the smell of coffee. It's horrible. I hate it. The flavour is horrible. I hate it. You know, my mum was right about sprouts and spinach, but so wrong about coffee. I've never grown into it. But every time I smell coffee, I remember that shop window and the smell in Canterbury. And that was more than 10 years ago. They say it that way. So it's that sense of smell. And it's amazing because we don't really give it the credit it deserves. And so many of the things that we do in our modern lifestyles actually stop the sense of smell really, really working. But just think about it. Just linking today with next week, where would your sense of taste be if you didn't have the expectation that your sense of smell has given you? Might all be slimmer though. Anyway, we're going to stop there.
But no, I mean, just touching on what you said about bringing the smell indoors from outdoors. When working as a garden landscaper, we had to take down, I believe it was a cherry tree, and we had a tree surgeon come in and stump grind the stump out, which had left all the wood chips behind. And I remember talking to one of the other guys that worked for the company, and he was saying that a lot of the wood chip that necessarily gets bought that's just left over from cutting a tree down or taking the stump out, the stump grinder, is then collected up. And a lot of people will use it in like incense burners, or put it in the fire, because if you actually cut a tree down, you've just got the bare wood chip left, where if the top of the tree is dead but the bottom's still alive, if you take those bits of wood chip and then just put them on your fire, the smell, the sap that comes out of the wood chip then goes into the room which you've done burn it in, because it's the same principle with the stump grinder, is it's heating up the wood as it's cutting. So all of that, all the bark and all the wood chip has been cut up, and you can lay it in your home fire and burn it, and it makes the whole house smell like whatever smell of which tree you want. So if you cut a pine down, you get the sap smell of a pine. If you cut a cherry down, you get the sap smell of a cherry. And there's a lot more to think about, because I didn't think about that, and I never thought about that until Dad just mentioned about bringing the outside in. And that is one of our main features, is trying to bring the outside in for everyone, even if you can't access it yourself. But anyway, move on. Next thing we have is Unleashing a Walker. This is, I believe, week 2 of Unleashing a Walker. And this week we've got a special guest who's sent in an Unleashing a Walker. So we will just play the video, and this is in Worth Marshes.
But it's actually really nice, because before we knew that, or before I kind of asked Shelley nicely if she would go out and record a video for us, I'd actually been in Worth Marshes myself and recorded a video. So, and in conversation, Shelley said, well, that's my backyard almost. I go there quite a lot. So we said, well, would you record a video and put it on? And she said, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. And I don't know this and I don't know that. And we said, yeah, but all you need to be is enthusiastic. Yeah. If you can deliver enthusiasm, then that's job done. So Shelley sent us some videos, and we've taken a selection of them and put them back to back. And Shelley will narrate her way through them. And then we're going to quiz her in great depth afterwards as to one or two of the things that she said and one or two of the things that she's seen. So please enjoy this video. And then after that, you're going to get mine.
Hello, this is Shelley. I'm out on my walk in Worth, and I live in Worth. This is where we start. Come through the church gate, through the churchyard. Beautiful church. Hear the crows. I'm going to head off up that way. Hear the bird song. Hope you can hear that. It's lovely. I don't know what any of them are, but that's a lovely sound. Call it. My kids call this the meadow. I don't know what its purpose is. It's just some ground at the back of the church. Doesn't look that inviting now, but in the summer it's beautiful, long grass, and we sit here and have picnics. And I did look into who owned it, actually, to see if it was a place that the local school could use, because they haven't got a very big playground, and it's owned by the University of Cambridge. This spot of land here at the back of Worth Church. Here's another part of the walk. So this is the RSPB land now. They've deliberately flooded this area to give some wetlands for the birds. Nothing out there today, but usually in summer, obviously swans, ducks, lapwings. That's the water rushing underneath me, you can hear there. It's got the dike system here. Have I got him? There's a kestrel on a branch and I just missed him. There he is. Can I see him? Don't know if I can get
right into the sun.
Ha. Usually when I say I can see something, it's a pigeon, isn't it? And that was a kestrel. See him there. Yeah. Ah. Ah. There's one. There's hundreds of them. Look at them all. Never seen anything like that, have you?
No, maybe not that many.
They're coming back again. So coming to the end of the walk this morning, go back down the lane and back around the village, and it's been an incredible morning. I've done this walk 100 times and I have never seen a kestrel on a branch right next to me, and those flock of geese flying overhead, the sound, the spectacle of them, meeting a bird watcher on at that exact point who could tell me what I was looking at. It's just brilliant, absolutely lovely, and yeah, quite an experience. I hope the videos come out well. I hope everyone gets to see that. It was a real spectacle. What a morning. Thank you very much, Worth. What a lovely walk.
Well, I think that's absolutely amazing. It just goes to show that birds in particular are so easy to get some good footage, some good shots. You know, the geese flying through are spectacular. It's amazing to see. It's amazing to see so many numbers of birds in the air. So, yes, we bring Shelley onto the.
There we
Yeah.
go. Should be.
There she is. Hello, Shelley.
Hello.
Hi. You hear my little excited noises on the video when I see something. Oh, it was strange because I thought it was just going to be like my normal walk, and then I was actually stopping and thinking and listening. You'd done the program that week about listening. I listened to the bird song anyway, but yeah, it was a really special one. I've never seen that before with the geese. There must have been about 300 of them, something like that. It was amazing. And I've got pretty bad eyesight, and we always walk along, and I was saying to my husband, what's that over there? And he says, you know, it's a pigeon, or I'm always thinking it's something exciting because I'm a very enthusiastic person. And then this one time, it was a kestrel on a branch, literally that far away from me. I didn't catch it until it was up in the air, but yeah, just my normal Sunday morning walk, and it was like that. It was great. Just yeah, everything happened as if it had been planned. It was amazing.
We just have one thing come in the chat saying, really great, Shelley. Makes me want to go and walk the dog there. We love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's lovely. It's a lovely walk. I mean, it's probably about an hour, that loop, depending on how quickly you walk. And yeah, it's great.
So it's funny how, I mean, a couple of times you sort of said, well, I've never seen this before and I've never seen this, or you were saying you never really listened. I kind of half wonder if you maybe had seen those things quite a lot before, but they were just something that was happening that, if you like, you didn't put your awareness to, and you didn't look and you didn't think, oh, well, there's something there going on and it's exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because normally, you know, I do that walk with my husband, and we do it to get out of the house, away from the kids, and to talk. You know, just to have an hour to ourselves to talk. So I suppose normally we're, you know, chatting about all the boring things that have got to happen in the house, or whatever. But that one time, I'm saying to him, "Be quiet, I'm filming," and as you say, yeah, it was there.
And I expect he knows, happy wife, happy life. So
Oh, he does.
yes, but I mean, there was a couple of things that you said there. You know, the fact that you didn't know what anything was, and you know, we've talked about this in previous weeks, and the fact that it doesn't matter, the fact that you get excited about seeing things. It's a bird doing what a bird does, or it's a collection of birds doing what they do. And even if the kestrel was a little way away, when you did catch it on the screen, it's still identifiable uniquely as a kestrel. There's nothing else that does that, you know, and you can see why they traditionally were called windhover, you know, and you did that. And it was spot on. And the grey-leg geese going through was just spectacular. And but like I said, you've been there 100 times. The more times you get out, the more chances you get. So that's absolutely brilliant.
But no, I mean, that's one of the things is you get, they say when you finish school, so you never stop learning. At the time you go, nah, I'll stop learning now, and I don't need this, I don't need that. But the amount of times we'll still go out on walks now, I mean, like you said, you don't know how things are. The amount of times we'll go out and I go, Dad, what's that? Dad, what's that? Dad, what's that? Dad, what's that? And he goes, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. And then you go out again next time and you think, and you can say, oh, you seen what's going on over there? Oh, look, it's going on that. Oh, look, it's one of those. And it's all learning. I mean, it might not be the case, you know, now, but I mean, it might be a case of in a year's time when you've watched a couple of these and you've seen something, you thought, oh, I remember that. And then you go out next time and you go, oh, it's one of those.
It's interesting because you're saying about that. So there was a man out who was a bird watcher. Actually, I think you can hear him talking on one of the videos, and he's got, you know, one of the like the Kent country accents. He was quite an old chap, and I was saying to him as the geese went over, you know, what are they? And he's looking through his binoculars, and he's saying there's geese and there's white-fronted cormorants. And it was so strange because we just sort of met on the path as that happened. He told me what those things were, and then he disappeared off. I'm never probably going to see that man again. But he explained what those things were to me. It was incredible. We didn't see anyone else that entire walk except that man at that point.
It's probably Mr. Ben. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I do.
Appeared and vanished. It's funny though, because one of the reasons why it was so interesting was the week before with Gillian, we've been out and we walked around and through there. And that was, if you like, as a schoolboy, my backyard. I lived in the village, grew up in the village. And having not walked through there for more than 10 years, then it was amazing because they have dug out all of the scrapes, which are, since the RSPB have taken over the manager of it, purely and simply to bring in the waders, to bring in the birds, to give that expanded habitat, because all of the area was originally floodplain for, I mean, the sea used to come right the way through into the back of kind of like Finglesham now, you know, where the Crown Inn is, and then it turned right in towards Munjum and left towards Sandwich. So the fact that they're actually scooping out a little bit more and bringing some of that back is fantastic. But anyway,
we've just got one last thing to let you know, Shelley. We've come back. People have come back in the chat, and what was it, Shelley? Great video, lovely to see. I'm a bit like you, and often say, "Oh, what's that?" And it ends up being a seagull or a pigeon. Although we have we've seen many buzzards and hawks too. sparrowhawk even came down and took off with one of the doves in our garden the other day.
It's amazing. But even seagulls are more than just seagulls, you know. You've got herring gulls, great black-backed gulls, black-headed gulls. And incidentally, if the black-headed gull has got a black head, it's not a black-headed gull. It's a Mediterranean gull, because black-headed gulls have got black heads, except for brown heads, except for in the summer when they got white head, in the winter when they got white heads. Are you keeping up all right? There's a lot of different ones. It's a bit anarakish, but and if you're really lucky, you might even get to see a greater black-backed gull as well as the lesser black-backed gull. And then there's another story about lesser black-backed gulls turning into herring gulls, but we'll save that one for another day. You're right.
Catch your breath a sec. Catch your breath a sec.
So in the phrase of catching my breath, I'm going to show you the video that I shot. It's got a little bit of wind noise on it on a couple of occasions, but yeah.
But thank you very much, Shelley. We really appreciate it. If anyone else has got any videos of walks, of anything, please send them in. We'd love to see them, and we can share them with the group. I mean, like Shelley's just done, she doesn't know much about what's going on, but if you don't know what it is, maybe we can answer we can tell you what it is, and we can answer the questions of what's that, who's this, what's that over there, and we can answer them for you. And it would just be great to see from where you live, maybe a local walk that you do all the time. But here is Dad's video from the Worth Marshes. If I can, that's the one. We go like that, and then boom.
Hiya, this is Simon, Simple Life Circle. We're out on a beautiful Saturday morning, to be fair. We've come out to Worth Marshes, which is now pretty much a bird reserve, but this is a walk that I used to do on a regular basis when I was a kid. And probably haven't been through here now for at least 10 years. And it's changed somewhat, and I'll show you. You see, they've actually ploughed out these scrapes the entire way along the walk. And these scrapes make this a fantastic place for wading birds. They come, and obviously at the edges, they'll move around, but there's widgeon I've seen here today. I've heard peewits or lapwings. We've seen a lot of rooks. We've talked to loads of people. Apparently they're all here looking for a yellow wagtail, which kind of makes me smile a little bit because they're relatively regular passage migrants. We'll get them for a couple of weeks most years. But it's lovely to come out, just let the wind breathe through. There are streams, dikes, wheat fields. You can see behind even more of a scrape, which has been dug out specifically. I mean, we always used to get a little bit of wet here because it's part of the founding floodplains. It's absolutely amazing to come out and see how the countryside has actually been improved specifically for wildlife. And as I've said so many times, you're probably getting bored with me now, the more life we have around us, the more wildlife in our lives, then the more life we kind of almost have in our life. But this is absolutely spectacular. All the reed marshes, the hedgerows. Can you see the red of that hawthorn? Absolutely lovely. My inner walker is well and truly awakened. Thank you. Simple Life Circle.
But no, I mean, it's brilliant when you go out on walks and you'll see a lot of things and you don't necessarily know what it is. I mean, I was brought up, quite fortunately, I was brought up with the countryside on my back doorstep and with him as a dad. So I picked up a lot of stuff and learnt a lot through my childhood. And I remember going to school and they'd ask you a few questions. I remember one of them specifically when I was about year 5 or year 6, they went, how many types of seagulls can you describe? Or how many types of seagulls can you list? And I had to write down, I think it's like, they said you had to write 3 and I wrote 4 or 5. And I ended up writing 4 or 5 and then the teacher turned around and everyone went, seagull. And I turned around and just went, no. And everyone's looked at me thinking I'm an idiot. And then the teacher's gone, actually, yeah, you're right. But again, it comes back to, I was brought up on that. And that's what I've learned and known from Dad. But if you don't know these things, this is almost a place for you to come so you can learn what's outside and learn what you're seeing on a day-to-day basis. If you're taking a dog for a walk or you're going out with your family in a country park, things like that. It's a space for everyone to come and learn and to share their own experiences. I mean, maybe hopefully Shay would like to come back in maybe 6 months' time or a year's time and do another walk and go, oh, well, I know what this is now. I know what this is now. And it would just be amazing to see. Even if anyone else could send in a video, it would just be amazing.
Or even from similar places, because it will be a completely different video because the backdrop would have totally changed. So, you know, even compare the same place back to back over 6 months will be really interesting as well.
So a couple of things come back in the chat. Shelley actually said she didn't know that was a hawthorn. She's learnt something else today. And there you go. And we've also had Verbo come back and say, never mind, Ross, you could have a worse dad. Simon's a good chap. You're not bad. You're definitely not bad. Who else is going to come on long distance walks with me?
Exactly. Because you started it, so.
That's true. I did start it.
We decided we were going to lighten things up just a little bit. So we've got a little challenge for you. It's not one to do between this show and the next show. We're going to do it right here and right now. You see, we've got some footage of sparrows. And the challenge for you is to try and count the number of sparrows. Now, you can only ever count the sparrows that you can see at one time, okay? Because if they go out of shot and come back in shot, that's probably the same sparrow. And they might move around quite a bit as well. So the challenge is to try and count the number of sparrows. And when we finished it, what we'd like you to do is put your answer in the chat, okay? And then what we'll do is go back and we'll take a couple of stills, which is tricky because the sparrows, well, you'll see. But anyway, are you ready to try and count the sparrows? Here we go.
Everyone get ready in 3, 2, 1.
And you can hear the dogs crunching their breakfast. Okay. Oh, numbers are going in, Ross.
So we've got 22, 19, 27, 16, 24, 21 and 20 so far.
I think they're all guessing.
22 as well. Another 22. That's 2 for 22 so far, which 22 is winning as of right now. Let me see if I can find a still where there's quite a few.
So you can see the problem with the stills, because they're moving so fast and we've had to lower the quality of the video. It's very hard to actually count them when we stop it. To be fair, we don't actually have an answer. When I counted them, I got 17 twice.
And when I counted them, I got 20.
So it is one of those very, very difficult, but it's really weird because sparrow numbers, I mean, when I grew up, we just took sparrows for granted. They were everywhere. There were loads and loads of sparrows. And yet, and the flock size, the average flock size was 25, 30. Well, the average flock size nowadays is 10, 8 to 10 birds, which is really bad because that makes the gene pool really small. And if you get small groups of any organism, they're going to die out because there isn't the variation. So quite obviously there, because we feed the birds and they get through one of those feeders every day. And sometimes they've cleaned it out by lunchtime. I fill it up at probably about 6:30, 6:45 in the morning, and they quite often cleaned it out by lunchtime, which gives you an idea of just how much food sparrows can actually eat, or a flock of sparrows can eat. We think there's probably somewhere in the region of 30 sparrows in the flock. But again, for obvious reasons, we're not entirely sure. Incidentally, on the subject of not knowing what things are, there is a really cool little story. You see, when you first start getting into anything, you have a thirst for knowledge. And because of the way that we bring up our children, and we've been brought up, we have a desire to name everything and to be accurate and to know what everything is. And if you're into birds, you buy a bird book, or you join the RSPB and they give you a bird book. And then you go out and you want to find all those birds that are in the book. Well, I was out one time over near Swingate, top of Dover, and there was this small brown bird on this roof. Now, generally, if you don't know what a small brown bird is, you call it an LBJ. And Ross's mum used to think that that was a species of bird. It actually stands for little brown job. Okay. But there was this LBJ on the roof of a building. And I've got out my book and I'm going through, and because it's little brown, I thought it must be a female, because generally in the bird world, the females are duller coloured because they need to be camouflaged when they're sitting on a nest. So, but I've gone through all the finches, chaffinch, greenfinch. It's not a finch. The beaks are just not quite right. So I'm going through all the buntings, and it's not a bunting either. So I'm getting a bit frustrated now, and it's not a tit because it's not, it's just not colourful enough. And after waiting, they're standing there with their hands on their hips waiting for me. Ross's mum goes, "Come on, you idiot, it's a sparrow." A bird that I've seen every day, a bird that I knew every day, a bird that was around me for the whole of my life. But because I needed to know exactly what that bird was, and I had to find it in my book, the one bird I didn't look at was a sparrow. Never too old or too young to be a fool. Anyway, so that must bring us around. Is that the time already?
That is the time already.
We've been talking too much.
Clearly.
Definitely. Better crack on.
Well, this week I'm running my next segment as such on about long distance walks, seeing as we have now reached the end of all of our long distance walks. I know it's a sad time, but we've got much more plans for the future, which hopefully you'll enjoy. Now, this is my second to last bit for a little while on long distance walks, and this week is all about places to stay. I have got a pros and cons list of each option when staying on long distance walks, and next week will be a list on equipment and a few stories that we have actually, picked up knowledge ourselves, and we've got stories about from our first few walks that we did where we discovered that we were taking way too much. But anyway, right, let's move on to...
Love this first picture.
Oh yeah, the first picture is 13-year-old me doing 13-year-old me things. So it is a time in history which I almost hope doesn't exist, but does. So this is at your basic campsite. Now, your basic campsite, the pros for a basic campsite is it's cheap. You can go out, you can pay a small fee, normally most of them single figures if you're on a long distance walk, stay a night, and you've got basic facilities like somewhere you can wash up. Doesn't normally have hot water, it's cold water, you can wash up there. You've got a shower that you can normally use, even if it is one of those ones where you've got to keep pushing the button in.
Quite often it's a queue as well, though.
Yeah, normally there can be a queue for the facilities, which sometimes is a pain, but other times, once you're clean, you get to laugh at everyone else that's in the queue. And it's also really easy to book. Most campsites can squeeze in a small tent anywhere. We've done walks in the past where they've gone, we're fully booked, but as long as you don't need power or anything else, we can just tuck you in the corner over there. But the negatives about it is basic facilities. There is no internet.
That's a bonus.
For you, maybe. For me, not so much. But that is the one thing we did pick up on when we did the walks, is when you took 13-year-old me away from modern day things that I'm just used to using all the time, like a laptop or a TV, or having internet for my phone. Your whole life changes. Your whole lifestyle of what you do when you turn up, how you think about what you're going to do, how you're going to plan, is all different. I mean, we got to a point down the West Highland Way where I was turning up and Dad would go off to pay, or we found out where we stay and Dad would go and get some supplies or do something, and then he'd come back and I'd put the tent up. Now, when we're at home, I'd never normally would do something like that, where I'd just go up into my room or sit in front of the telly. Whereas out on these walks, your whole mindset changes. And it's just part of it at the end of the day. It is part of walking. But anyway, back to our pros and cons. The other con is it can have limited shops. Some of them don't actually have shops on the site. I mean, this one we stayed at here is Drimmen on the West Highland Way. And we had to walk into the town, because the next day was our rest day. We had to walk into the town to get our supplies, because essentially it was on a farm. It was a small area which they couldn't farm on, so they just used it as an area where people could camp. And the showers can be temperamental at campsites, on walks. We've had ones before. I remember on the South Downs Way, we stayed at this whole environmentally friendly place, and it was all, the showers were solar powered. So whenever there was a lot of sun, the shower was boiling hot, so you couldn't stand underneath it properly. But if there was no sun, you had to stand in front of a freezing cold shower. Or if you showered at night, it was freezing. So it swings and roundabouts with the showers, but on the whole, a campsite is a nice, simple, easy place to go and book. Now, talking of being in nature, this is a wild campsite. The one here is on the West Highland Way and is in Varan. This is just the side before you walk the Rannoch Moor. There are pros to this. Is it's free. You can turn up, you pitch up, and that's it. Everything you need, you've got to have with you. You turn up, you think, I want to camp there. I want to camp there. All right, cool. Set your tent up, get your supplies out. You can't have a shower unless you want to go jump in the river, which we ended up doing later on, which I'll talk about shortly. It's conveniently set up on the trail. It's bang on the trail. Like, people are walking past when you're setting up, because they're going off to do another stage. Or in the morning, people are getting up and they're just going, because the trail is about 10-20 meters away from where you're camped. So you just pack up and you go. But the one story about this place where we stayed is when we woke up in the morning, when we went to sleep, there was no wind. There was a little bit of gust of wind which took all the midges away, and it was really nice to sit outside and you weren't getting attacked by bugs. Whereas in the morning there was a light spatter of rain and there was no wind whatsoever, and there were so many midges. I mean, I can't really tell you how I counted them all, because it's not very family friendly, but it was so many. Our kettle went from grey to black, and we had midge jackets, not nets. They were full-on jackets.
It was the Germans, wasn't it? The Europeans. The Europeans didn't have midge nets, and they're just standing there talking as if nothing's happening, being bitten to smithereens, and they don't even bat an eyelid. Unreal. Obviously, us English are soft. Well, these two anyway.
But I mean, talking about people staying there, that is the last pro for wild campsites. It's community atmosphere. Everyone is there for the same reason, because no one's going to go to a wild campsite unless unless they feel like they completely want to. Because most people, if they're going on holiday and they're taking a car, they're going to go somewhere they've got a shower, they've got some fresh water supply, things like that. Whereas wild campsites, there is none of that. I mean, we took water purifier tablets with us, so we fill up our bottles out of the river and we just put some water purifying tablets in them. But the whole thing about the walk is it's talking to people that are there, and there's a whole community on wild campsites. It's all about who's there and where they're going the next day, how many days they're doing it for, where they've come from, talking to people, and it is brilliant. But the cons of these places is you get no washing facilities. Everything you make dirty, you've either got to wash in the river or you've got to wash with water that you've brought with you. There are no shops, so you've got to have everything with you that you need, which can sometimes become a pain. But can also sometimes be a blessing because you can plan exactly what you're having the next days, depending on how many days you need. And the last one is there are no cleaning facilities.
No toilets.
Yeah, no toilets, no cleaning facilities. So the way that they actually advise you to do it in the Trailblazers is you dig a hole, do business in a hole, and bury it. That is the advice from what's the people called? National Trust and not National Trust, National Trails. So that's the right one, National Trails. And it says in the Trailblazer as well, it says just do your business in a hole and bury it, which isn't the nicest thing to do. Or you can just hold it in for however many days.
Incidentally, in Scotland, you can wild camp, and along the West Highland Way, there are probably as many wild campsites in spaces, because unless you can do 30 miles a day, quite often, it's only the wild campsites you can stop in. You can't currently legally wild camp in England. In Scotland, you can just pitch up if you want to on the side of the way and just stay the night. But in this country, not allowed to do it. So even if you want to, you've got to go to Scotland.
Mm-hmm. And on to our next one, which is bed and breakfasts. Probably the most common place for people to stay. We did the Roseway bed and breakfast, and it just meant that everything we had to carry was so much lighter. We just had to carry a fresh set of clothes, waterproofs, and any food we needed. There was minimal equipment we needed to take because every night we knew we'd have a bed to go to. We knew we were going to get breakfast in the morning, and we generally would go out for an evening meal somewhere. It is more expensive, but the cons of staying in a B&B is you get full facilities, you've got a toilet, you've got a shower, you've got a place you can fill up your water bottles, you've got an area you can wash and just feel better, you can feel clean. You get a welcoming host filled with stories and knowledge. I mean, this place here was called Cheney Thatch, and the woman that owned it was called Roz. And at the time, I was thinking about joining the Navy, and we spent the whole time for a good hour when we turned up, just talking to her about stories of people that stayed previously, and talking about her life experience and stuff. Working, I think she was
in the Air Force, wasn't she?
No, it wasn't Air Force. It was what's the other one? You go on holiday, and air hostess, and she told us stories about all that, and she said that she then went on to join the RAF.
Right.
And I remember talking quite a lot, and she seemed to almost just want to talk to me. I didn't want to talk to Dad because she wasn't interested in anything that Dad had to say, which was quite entertaining at the time. And that's the thing, is it's hot, consistent shower, and it's a warm bed every night. You're not sleeping in a cold, wet tent, or you're not sleeping with a dog that's been in the rain all day. The dog actually gets to, most of them don't let you stay with dogs, but you haven't got to sleep in the middle of two people which are freezing cold and a little bit damp, and then you've got a wet dog in between you and your sleeping bag as well. And it's just a nicer place to stay. But the only cons to it is more expensive than camping. Not considerably more expensive, but it's the most expensive way of doing a long distance walk. And it's to venture somewhere to have an evening meal. You have to leave where you're staying to go get an evening meal. Most of the time we've been fortunate in the people we've met when we've stayed at their houses. Some of them have dropped us at the local bus stop, or they've taken us to a local pub, or recommended somewhere to go and have a dinner. But you do have to leave to go and eat, which isn't great because you once you've done all this walking, you do just want to sit down and stop. Now the next one is youth hostels. This one here is Korean Larrick on the West Highland Way. It is cheap and has a bed. You've got your own cooking facilities, so if you turned up with your own food, you actually get to use what they've got there, and you can cook it yourself and eat whenever you want. There's no sort of time scale on it. You're not waiting for anyone else. And you can also purchase food there to cook, which is really helpful because a lot of the time, when we did Korean Larrick, we knew we weren't going to have a shop for a couple of days. So we thought, right, well, what can we buy here that's long lasting that we can eat? And we ended up buying like spag bowl and things like that, like tinned meals and baked beans and
boil in a bag, wasn't it?
Boil in a bag as well. But the one thing we have eaten, which we really would recommend, is tinned burgers. They were horrible. Tinned burgers are absolutely disgusting. They come out, they don't even look like a burger. They're kept in like an oil and you pull it out and it just looks like a patty that's been left to fester for a couple of days. And we thought even if we fried them, they'd be nice and resemble some sort of taste of a normal burger you'd expect. It wasn't. Please never buy them. It's not great.
But they will keep you alive, though.
They will do that.
They will keep you alive for a short period.
And then the cons of staying in a youth hostel is its communal sleeping arrangements. So generally you'll be in a room with anywhere between 2 to 6 other people. It's all communal. You can get private rooms, but the majority of them are communal. So you kind of generally have to go to sleep when other people are, because it's just courtesy generally when you're doing things like this. And the other one is potential unwelcoming guests, other guests. So some people might not like the fact you've turned up and you're wet and you've got loads of equipment in a bag, and you're washing stuff, and maybe your clothes that you're walking in smell. But at the end of the day, youth hostels are used a lot of the time for walkers and people that are travelling. So it's not the end of the world. And the next one is possibly one of the most entertaining places we have stayed at, which is Bothy's. Now, this here is Royker Bothy, but it's spelt strange. It's spelt Roy Church. Not entirely sure why the Scottish decide to spell things an interesting way, but Bothy's are essentially just a building that is put up, which you can turn up to and you can sleep in. That's essentially what it is. Normally they're old farm buildings, or they're just buildings that have been used by people that go out to farm and have stayed there themselves and then gone off the next day, or they're travelling from one place to another. Pros of them, they are free. They're intended for walkers in this day and age, mostly than anything else, and they are normally in remote places. This one is in the middle of a valley next to Loch Lomond, which you have to then walk down a very windy trail to get to, and it is so secluded you wouldn't even know it was there unless you turned up and knew it was there. And it keeps you and your equipment dry. You haven't got to go out, set your tent up, and if it rains overnight, it's not the end of the world, because you and your equipment are dry, and you haven't got to worry about, I've got to put a wet tent away in the morning. I've got wet boots that are still wet from the previous day. And this one also had a fire in it as well. I mean, I don't think we used it because the wood was all wet from outside, but they do have fires where you can warm the room before you go to sleep. The cons of them, however, it's open to everyone. The door is always open. You cannot lock the door. And it is quite creepy because you don't know who's going to walk in. You might wake up in the morning and there'll be 4 other people sleeping next to you that weren't there when you went to sleep. They are very, very eerie when it gets dark. It's a cool concept and it's a really interesting concept, but they are very, very creepy. And it is the most basic of facilities. This one had a few things left over by other people, like pots and cookers and stuff that you could use, walking poles as well. Lots of things like that people left behind, and they thought, I don't want that, but maybe someone else who's a like-minded person might want it themselves. And I believe Dad has got a section he wants to read about the Bothy.
Well, possibly catch up with it, but what I will put in is it's funny. The whole point of Bothy's is that they are in remote places and they can save lives. You know, if you're out and it's cold, it's wet or whatever else, and they are lifesavers, which is why they're open. But it's funny. I almost rather sleep in a tent with a door with a zip on it that's made of cloth than sleep in a Bothy which has got stone walls and a proper roof, because that door's open. And we've slept in 2 or 3 and we're never quite comfortable. In fact, at Royker, we found a club hammer and we went to sleep clutching this club hammer just in case we needed it overnight. You know, I've got a 13-year-old young man with us, and we had a slightly rough night, but it's weird because every single noise we started at, you know, a twig or a pine cone or whatever falling on the roof, and we'd be looking, and it was just, the most amazing thing was it started raining, and the rain came down in sheets. And one of the beautiful things about rain is it provides a very calm interior. You know, when we're out in a pergola and the rain comes down, it's peaceful, and it made that Bothy peaceful. And I'm pretty sure the only reason we really got to sleep was because that rain was peaceful. But there were a couple of other things about that Bothy in particular. we had tawny owls right next to us going like crazy. That was fantastic. I've never seen as many juvenile robins in one place. That was amazing. But one of the things that we did there, which Ross didn't say, because there's no facilities, we'd had a couple of days with no rain. So we actually went down to Loch Lomond, stripped off, and went and had a natural bath in the lake, in the loch. And you know what? Just submersing ourselves in the loch just made us feel so much better. Yeah, it was cold, but we were alive with it. Absolutely amazing. But yeah, vital places that are a bit scary.
Just to answer your question as well, you don't get Bothys in the UK as regularly as you do in Scotland.
No, there was one on the South Downs way, wasn't there?
There's one or two in the UK, but most of the ones that I used are in Scotland. We did stay in one of the South Downs way, but that was more maintained by by the National Trust rather than just being left as its own thing. Like the ones in Scotland. We did actually have a mouse visit us that night. It was the only thing that did visit us was a mouse, and he decided to eat our bread.
Most of it.
Most of the bread. I mean, we bought a full loaf, and majority of the loaf was gone when we woke up, or had big holes through it.
Mouse like a TARDIS. You think, loaf of bread, mouse. Bread, whoosh, mouse. Or mouse.
Big mouse by the end.
Big
And
mouse.
the last one for for this section, because time is running away with us this evening. Is bunkhouses. Now this is in Kinlochleven. This is the Black Horse Bunkhouse on the West Highland Way. I'll quickly whiz through it just so we can get to the last few things before the end almost.
We might run over by a minute or two. We can be forgiven.
The pros of a bunkhouse is it's a soft bed, which is great. You can't beat a soft bed after you've been sleeping on the floor with a roll mat and a sleeping bag and a blow-up pillow for a couple of nights. You cannot beat a proper bed. There is no two ways about it. You cannot beat a proper bed. It has all facilities. It's got washing facilities if you want to wash your clothes. It's got drying facilities for your clothes. It's got a consistent shower that's reliable and you don't generally have to queue for. And it's got a kitchen you can use with a sink with consistent hot water to wash everything. And it also has Wi-Fi, which for me at the time was amazing. I'd been off my phone for the last 10 days and I could finally catch up on 10 days worth of internet, which I hadn't seen. And I mean, Dad, I tell you, I turned into a different person because
it wasn't good.
I just ended up turning to my phone and watching everything on my phone. The only cons of them is it's more expensive than a youth hostel and it gives you the same facilities other than washing. Again, I've also got written here as a con, Wi-Fi, because it also is a con. And it is communal rooms again. But no, thank you very much for listening to my second to last topic on long distance walks.
For now.
Unless there's anything else that anyone would like to see, and I will cover those.
Okay. I considered putting this in earlier in the program, but ultimately it kind of fits here. You see, we need some help from you because this takes a lot of work to put together, and the feedback we're getting is saying that it's really cool and it's worth doing. So we're going to need to become a membership group. Okay, and for that, obviously, as you know, there's the 4, occasionally 5 broadcasts a month. Those are going to be coming out. We're going to have the Facebook group, which will become closed to those people who are members. We're also going to be offering 15% off any of the merchandise that we have. That's hedgehog boxes, bird boxes, bab boxes, DIY bird boxes. We're looking at getting a walker's survival kit together. So all of those and the walks, when we start them up again, when the government will let us, then we can offer 15% off all of those things. Now in January, that's going to be £20 per month per household. But if you can join up quicker than that, then in December it's £15 per month for, because it's £15. But we've still got, I think it's 7 founder member packages left. We've sold over half of them, which is amazing. Now, if you're a founder member, you will get, as part of that package, the 3-year pond, and I'll sign that to you for the Simple Life Circle. you get the 4 keys, and I'll sort that one out as well, and the 5 senses. And as soon as we get that subscription notice from Go Cardless, we'll get those into the post for you. I believe, Pete, yours should have got to you by now, which will be brilliant. Verbo's modelling some there. And the cost of those is actually more than 1 month's subscription. So we'd absolutely love it if you could sign up, please. That would be brilliant. And if there's anyone you know, then please bring them on, because if they get in before the new year, and there's 2 more episodes, that's next Thursday and then the 28th, they can get that offer, which would be really, really cool. But what I'd also ask you is on Sunday at around about 4:10, I'm going to be back on Radio Kent with Anna. She's changed her name. She was Anna Louise, but I should be on with her on Sunday. If you could tune in, that would be fantastic. We'll get a post out on social media. So spread the word as well, and hopefully that'll help bring a few more people in, because the bigger we can make this group, the more resources that we have available, that we can make this the most amazing, fantastic, high-tech DIY show going. You know, we don't want to lose that hint of rough and ready, but we want to make sure our videos are crystal clear. We want to make sure that what we're showing you is good quality stuff. So please help us out with that.
Yeah, just another thing to say as well is, like we touched on earlier, where we're not knowing what a lot of things are, and we're talking about the 5 senses and the smell and the taste and touch, and a lot of things like that are in the books. And you can read the books and take something from those books, and you go out and do a walk, and maybe you record it and bring it in, and you can say what you've learnt from the books, and then someone else can say what they've learnt from the books, and it's all being part of this community which we want to build. We want to make this community a place for everyone to come in and enjoy what they know, and so they can learn. And that's what we want it to be.
Indeed. So if you just message us or put it in the chat, all we need to know is an email address. We can give you the sign up link and just go in and fill in the form, and everything else will happen kind of automatically, except for me saying, what's your address, please?
But just the last thing to say as well. I think the offer that we are putting out is fantastic, and I hope that those people that have signed up are enjoying it as much as we are enjoying presenting to you. And please, if there is anyone else you know, it's still free until the end of December, and we do have the Christmas special coming up, which is not on a Thursday. It is on the 28th, which is a Monday. We'll be starting at 6 o'clock. It's a 2-hour-long broadcast. Just because the Thursday's dropping in over Christmas on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, we figured it'd be better to do a Christmas special in the middle of the two, so everyone can have their time with their families over Christmas as much as we're allowed this year.
And we've also got, she confirmed today, we've got a real expert on hedgehogs. She's coming on. I don't think she's actually joined us tonight, but a lady called Lucy, she's going to come on. She actually looks after and nurses hedgehogs when they're ill. I remember when she was local, she had what was an ex-shop with about 50 hedgehogs in there. So she's going to come on and she'll talk about the things that we can do for hedgehogs, what to do if we find ill hedgehogs. And so if you've got any questions that you'd like us to direct to her, then again, please get in touch or write them down so we can put them in the chat on the day. So that would be really cool too. So
now, I think we have sat through and enjoyed everything this evening, and I think it's time that we come to a close. I'll just pass over to Dad to give some final words of this evening. Dad,
will do. It's funny. After all that, what I want to just finish off with is the word enough. Very often in our lives today, we spend our entire time wanting more. But I think one of the most important things to actually just take on board is the concept of enough. And let's just think about some of those. I have eaten enough. You know, I can think of times where the food, we had one last Saturday, we had a curry, it tasted delicious, and I ate more than enough. Should have stopped myself. But just that concept with eating can help you lose weight. With drinking, I've had enough. You know, it's that accumulation of money. We all want to have enough money to pay the bills, but there's a point where I've got enough. You know, and it's more about gratitude than that continual chase for more. And that's so enshrined in our culture that if we can just step aside and say, you know, I've got enough. I've got enough things. I've got enough clothes. I've got enough. There's enough cars. We've got 3 cars in this household now. We did have 4. And a bike. You know, just spend a little bit of time in your life actually thinking, I've got enough, and be grateful for that. Thank you very much indeed. Good night. We'll love to see you next Thursday. Share our posts, engage in the Facebook group, and have a great life.
We'll see you next week. Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.